Hi, I'm Roberta Williams. I have been invited to join you all for to celebrate, I suppose, the 40th anniversary of King's Quest coming up. I'm very proud and happy and honored to have been invited. It's been a while since I've talked to everybody or done any speeches. Actually, this is not a speech. I don't do that. I'm impromptu. So I would say this is an impromptu gathering of you guys, and I'm just along with you and going to take a little bit of a conversational tone. So, I'm here. You can sort of see I'm in the wilds of the state of Washington someplace, and it's a beautiful day. Ken had suggested, my husband, that I have a few King's Quest boxes. And so I looked around to see what I have, and I have, just my own collection. It's just my own collection. You would think I would have boxes and boxes of my old games, but I really don't. Actually, some of these might be worth a little bit of money, So this is just to show you what I have in my own personal collection. This is King's Quest 6, one of the better King's Quest, I've been told. I have this one is an early one. This is just King's Quest. This is it. This was the first game, King's Quest 1, although it didn't have a 1 here because it was just King's Quest at the time. I'm not sure when it was released. 40 years ago. What would that be? 83, I think, wouldn't it? No, 84.
That's actually the PC Junior version.
Oh, the PC Junior version. Yeah, 84. Wow, long time ago. I have King's Quest 5. I always loved this box. This is the first box that I really worked on with our marketing team myself. And I was very instrumental in designing this box. The other ones, not so much. But I really liked how this one turned out. So this is King's Quest 5. This is one of my faves. I've got King's Quest 2, Romancing the Throne. This is an oldie but a goodie. I have, in the same kind of box, we must have done this kind of box for a while, King's Quest 3, To Err is Human. That's also one of mine. I actually love this game. I designed it very different, with magic spells and the like. This is King's Quest. Oh, I have King's Quest 1 again. Okay, yeah, the other one was the what was it? The PC Junior box. So this one is the actual King's Quest 1. That I think we did it a little later. This must be an updated box.
Or PC Junior came before anything.
Oh, PC Junior came before anything. Yeah. So okay, Ken is giving me some pointers what to say. And this is King's Quest 7, The Princeless Bride. So that one, and I am so sorry, but I didn't have King's Quest 8, the Mask of Eternity. I don't know why. So do I have everything? Did I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but not 8? And I'm so sorry about that. But I did my best. I just wanted to just go over all of those. Each one of them, I have my favorites. My favorites would be King's Quest 5. I really liked King's Quest 3. I just thought it was a different sort of design. I was trying to be very unique there. But obviously the very best was King's Quest 1, the very first one, because without it, we wouldn't have the rest. And I know I miss them. Had we not sold Sierra, I would have definitely done King's Quest 9, and I would have done it differently than how King's Quest 8 turned out. I would have gone back to basics, would have gone back to the actual story, it would have been awesome. Unfortunately, I was not able to do that. I wanted to speak a bit about Colossal Cave. And unfortunately, these days, games are not sold in boxes like they used to be. And we have no box for Colossal Cave. That's our latest game that we shipped last year. And there's no box. You just go to Steam, or you go to Epic, or you go to GOG, or you go to, oh God, it's on so many platforms. It's Sony, it's on Apple, iOS, it's on, VR version is Quest 2. We're going to be doing Quest 3. It's coming out very soon. Vision Pro coming out very soon. But there's no box. I couldn't just show you, and that makes me very sad, actually. The one I wanted to bring it up, not because I'm trying to push it, although I kind of am, but of course. But it's what started the whole thing. Here's Microsoft Adventure. Here's Apple Adventure. It's the same game. This is the game. I actually played Apple Adventure from end to end, and on our Apple II that we had in 1980. And this is the game that got me into the industry, into designing games. And so it's pretty known that I went on after playing, they called it Apple Adventure, but it was Colossal Cave, to design Mystery House, and from there other games, and then from there King's Quest. Colossal Cave we went back to just to just as full circle. I sort of think of it as full circle. We started with this. That's what started the industry, I like to say. And this is interesting. Microsoft also had Adventure, also Colossal Cave, at the same time as Apple. I played it. I started Mystery House and went into King's Quests. And now I am back doing Colossal Cave. But this is what's interesting to me. Microsoft now owns all of our games. Microsoft owns the King's Quests, all of them. They own them since we sold our company. And I think things are circular. And sometimes they just happen. And you wonder how, and you wonder why, but they circle around, and it's a sort of fate, I think. And I just find that very interesting. And I have to say, Ken and I put a lot of time and attention into it, and I would love for people to check out Colossal Cave wherever games are sold. And it's just a circling back to my origins and the origins of adventure games in general. And again, back to King's Quest. Thank you for putting up with me and my little impromptu soliloquy at this point. Yes?
Well, I wrote down some questions.
Okay. I think
but you really can't hear me. I can hand you the phone. You can look at them and decide which ones
you
want to answer.
Okay. Well, I'll look at the phone. This is very impromptu. We are very, very impromptu people. So there's some questions. I'll see if I can answer them. It says, when you hear someone say King's Quest, what is your first thought? My first thought is the beginnings of really, that's, you could say the beginning of Sierra was Mystery House, or I don't know, the Dark Crystal, or, who knows. But really, it was King's Quest. It really was. King's Quest came on the scene, and it just took off. I think without King's Quest, I'm not even sure that Sierra would have really gone anywhere. Sometimes I wonder. And it was just one of those fateful things. Just like Colossal Cave for me was to start everything, King's Quest was what really started it. So to me, King's Quest speaks Sierra. If Microsoft called and wanted a King's Quest 9, what would you say? I've thought about this. I don't think they're going to call. I just really don't. I don't think they're going to do that. But if they did, I don't know. I might think about it. I might. I actually enjoyed going back into the games again, you know, with the modern version of Colossal Cave. It had been 25 years between my last game, which was King's Quest VIII, to Colossal Cave. 25 years before I got back into gaming design at all. Again, the circular going back. I kind of enjoyed it. So you never know. I never say never. If someone called you and said, had there been a King's Quest IX, what would you say? You know, honestly, I actually, not long ago, maybe a year ago, I put out into the Ethernet out there, and I don't even remember where or how, I put a scenario for King's Quest IX that I had thought about a couple of years ago. I wrote it down, and I found it, and I put it out there about a year ago. And if somebody can find it, they might find it interesting. That's what I would say about that right now. Tell us briefly what was in your head when you came up with King's Quest. It was interesting in that I was asked to do a game for IBM with their PC Junior. And they wanted it to be very much like what they called Adventures in Serenia, which was really, though, The Wizard and the Princess, which was the second game that I ever designed. And IBM back then, early 80s, was selling it in their own computer stores. And they recalled it Adventures in Serenia. So they said they wanted me to design a game for them, for the PC Junior, that was reminiscent of Adventures in Serenia. And but it was really, for me, The Wizard and the Princess. And I took it for granted that that's what they really wanted. They wanted something that was along the lines of The Wizard and the Princess. So it was pretty easy for me to just say, well, okay, then we need and I knew it was going to be third person. You were going to have a little guy, you know, that you're walking around, and so he had to be a hero, and he had to go rescue a princess, because that's what The Wizard and the Princess was. So I hate to say it was as simple as that, but that really was what it was. And I developed Sir Graham and his princess, Valenice, and he was going to go save her and then become king. And I just went back to my past of loving fairy tales and legends and just put it together. It really, and I had to do it fast, I have to say. They didn't give me much time, so it was really a kind of a quick put together game, but it obviously did very well. What was your favorite King's Quest character? I have to say Princess Rosella, of course. You know, when I put her in as a main character she was the first, I believe, unless somebody can tell me otherwise, female character, protagonist, third-person character, avatar, I guess that's a word that they use now, that was out there in gaming. So I am particularly fond of her. Let's see. What are some of the innovations that were in King's Quest? Oh, there were so many. I mean, I changed the communication, how you communicate with the game, the interface from parser. Started out as parser game, where you type in, one or two word sentences, and then it turned into full sentences. And I got that from the game Colossal Cave, the original adventure, because it was parser. And I switched it to icon-based, and that was with King's Quest V. Simplified it because people were beginning to have trouble with the parser. A lot of people didn't type in, so that was an innovation. Each King's Quest had a major innovation of some sort. I mean, I can't even think of them all right now off the top of my head. Besides the interface, that was a biggie, from parser to point-and-click icon-based. To, who is the who is the character you're going to be? Who is going to be your avatar? What was the story going to be? The graphics always got better. Every time, we did it, we upgraded to better and better graphics. We upgraded our sound. We upgraded music. Storytelling got better. Even my storytelling got better over time. So it just, every time there was always innovation, and it's really hard to say which one was best. It went along as it was going to be based upon the platform and, that we were going to be designing it for, and what was out there that we could do. Talk about meeting William Goldstein, who did the music for King's Quest IV. Well, that's a very interesting story. And Mark Siebert at the time, by the time of King's Quest IV, I actually had a producer. Before then, I don't think I had producers. We were starting to get more fancy, and teams was starting to get to be bigger and more professional, you might say. And I had a producer, and Mark Siebert was my producer, and he also is a musician and a very good one at that, and helped compose music, and he did a lot of our music in the King's Quest and others, and Phantasmagoria that I did later on, and he was my producer for that. He and I went down to Hollywood to meet with William Goldstein, who was a very famous composer of music, and he did a movie, what do you call it? Soundtracks, yes. But what he was really famous for was you could just give him a few adjectives, and he had his piano there. We went to his house, and he had his piano, and he could just belt out a song almost immediately, and just like that. So I went there, and I had to come up with first of all, I had to come up with all the places that I wanted music, and not just the soundtrack for King's Quest IV in general, but the any place that I wanted any kind of music, and I had never done that before. I had to think about I never had to think about really music. The music and sound effects that we had in King's Quest before that was boops and beeps and things like that the Apple II could do, or the early PCs, and it just they weren't really great, I would say, great songs and great music, but so I never had to really think about that much. And in fact, I think for the most part the programmers put in a lot of the beeps and the boops, and the music composers we had, and there's not much they could really do. So this was our first time to really have an actual composer try to do really great music. And but I had to think about where would I want music. And so I would say, well, I have to have good guy music, and I have to have bad guy music. We always had, we had our good guy was always the main character, your avatar. I used to call it your protagonist. But the bad guy music, there was always a witch, or it'd be a troll, or it'd be a monster of some sort that would come on the scene, a pirate, who knows. And so there was always bad guy. And you'd hear it and you go, oh my gosh, it's a bad guy. But then you'd have helpers. You had the good characters that would come along and help you, and that would be the good guy music. And so there was that, and then there was just one of the things I learned is doing the main song, the main soundtrack of the game. And this is something I learned from William Goldstein, was like with movies, there's the main soundtrack, and you might hear it at the beginning of the movie, or you might hear it more towards the end of the movie. But always, as you go through a movie, bits and pieces of the soundtrack come into play, and it can be done with it. it could be mysterious, or it could be happy, or, you know, whatever. And I learned that. So we did the soundtrack music for King's Quest IV first. And then from there, whatever I said that I wanted to be in the game as a piece of music, even if it was short, was he would take aspects of the main soundtrack and put it into the bad guy music or the good guy music, and he would just you know, weave it in. But I would still have to sit there and give my adjectives about what I expected that the music should be. It was a long day, and we did all the music. We did all of it, all through that entire day. And no matter what I said, he would say, give me, you know, what is this for? And then I would say it, and he would immediately go back to the main soundtrack music, and he'd basically belt it out. And that was extremely interesting to do. Tell us a little about Colossal Cave. Well, I already did point out that that was the latest game that Ken and I have worked on, and bring everything going full circle back to the very beginning again, not just for me and me getting into the computer design game and it being an adventure game, of course, but just, you know, coming back. And we did it because it was during the pandemic. And Ken and I have always been very busy people for 25 years. What we did in between selling the company and doing Colossal Cave was traveling. We're also cruisers. We're boat cruisers. And we just started out the Pacific Northwest years and years ago. And after we sold the company, we decided to really do it. And we bought a boat that could travel across oceans and go long distances. It was like a trawler type boat. And Ken became a boat captain, 100-ton boat captain. He did the work, was certified, and I had to learn to drive a boat and to be the boat person. You know, the lines of vendors, you know, the whole thing, and also the cook and the cleaner and the bottle cleaner and you know, the deck swabber and everything. And we traveled for almost 25 years around the world. So you could say we became world, you know, circumnavigators. And so when the pandemic came, we were sitting around and we were just trying to figure out what to do. And Ken decided to learn how to do 3D programming of graphics. I caught him doing it, and I said, "Why are you doing that?" And he said, well, he was thinking of maybe programming a little 3D game. And, you know, I talked about it with him, and we thought about it, and I said, well, you know, what about Colossal Cave? What about the original adventure? I mean, it's already designed. I don't even have to design it. It's already there, and it's a wonderful design. We know it is. It's been around for 40 years, maybe 35, 40, maybe more, and it's earned its stripes. It's earned its stripes, and as it's one of the best games, I think. That's my personal opinion. Ever really designed, even though it's an old game. It was an elegant design, in my opinion, and he talked to Don Woods, and basically we got permission to do it. And so we just did. We wanted it to be 3D. We didn't have an avatar. We decided not to do an avatar because if you play the original Colossal Cave, it's you. It's always you. You are doing this and you are doing that. And we didn't want to define who you were. We wanted you to be you, and from your own eyes, from your own experience. So we decided to make it first-person perspective, and going through a cave and a forest land, and so you see it all from your perspective. I wanted to keep it that way because that's what the original adventure is. We had a blast doing it. It just brought us back into being creative, and we're very proud of it. It's on 20-some platforms. Just about anything that can run a game, including your iOS phone, your smartphone. We're looking at Android. We're doing Android. It's going to be coming out soon for tablets and phones. I mean, it's on everything. Nintendo, VR. Check it out. It's great. It's getting good reviews. I mean, I'm going to say it's not for everybody. You have to really like adventure games, and you have to understand adventure games are not, and I don't mean an action adventure. Adventure games, kind of like retro, it takes some patience. You got to think. You got to solve puzzles. You got to do exploration. You have to notice things. You have to observe things. But we've also put in a lot of helpers in our version of Colossal Cave, and it's actually very, very beautiful. So you should check it out. That's what I have to say about Colossal Cave, and that's it. That's it. That's the quest. Oh no! Here's 3 more. If you could go back and change anything in any King's Quest game, what would it be? I don't do that. Once I design a game, it's done. I like it. It is what it is, and it's what it's supposed to be. So I do it. I work on it. I'm happy with it. I always tried to get them perfect. When one of my games shipped, it was never buggy. And I have to say, maybe somebody had found some things over the years, but they were the cleanest of our games, I think, Sierra games. I was very proud of all of them. So no, I wouldn't change any one of them. Do you think King's Quest is still relevant in today's world of dystopian violent games? Does anyone want a thinking game anymore? Well, that's a good question. That's what we wondered when we put Colossal Cave out last year, and we wondered that. And, what's interesting is my feeling was that it might start out slow because it's adventure games. I think I'm going to say something very controversial, but that's me. I say what I think. I think adventure games have lost their way a bit. I've looked at some of the ones that are now selling and that have been recommended to me. I think there are some good ones coming down the pike. Some that I know about. They're not out yet. There are some coming down the pike that are going to be a bit more reminiscent, but in a good way. And in a pretty, graphics, of course, much better because we can do that now. But much more reminiscent of what a Sierra game, had we gone forward with it, might be today. But in general, I feel like adventure games have sort of lost their way. They've gotten into what you call the action adventure, and that's where there's just much more, jumping and running and killing and what action adventure is, and that's where you kind of get a little bit in the dystopian and fighting and guns and swords and things like that. But they've also gone a little bit in another direction with they're more like interactive movies. And I kind of ran into that a little bit when I did Phantasmagoria, which you could say was an interactive movie. But I tried very hard to make sure it wasn't an interactive movie per se. I really, really tried very, very hard to keep the adventure game the way I always did my adventure games. Keep it that way, but have actors. But I also wanted to beef up the storyline, which I did, and I found that to be very difficult. To really, the more story you put in, the harder it is to keep it interactive from a writer standpoint. And I have found and I found it difficult, but I really feel with Phantasmagoria I found a good balance. I really feel like I found that, but it's not easy, and I think I was able to find that balance because I had done so many of these adventure games over the years, and not really done a script like for a movie. So I think a lot of people that might want to try to do interactive movies that are also adventure games, or they call them adventure games. They've also maybe been script writers for movies, or they're authors of books, and they're used to the story as the main thing, and scenes, and dialogue, and that kind of thing. And me coming to Phantasmagoria from a writing adventure games, from being a game designer, I had to go the other way. I had to figure out how to go from I'm designing an adventure game to now I'm working with actors and a larger story, script, storytelling and a script. So I think coming from the side of being a designer of games, I was able to find that middle ground maybe easier than if you came from a strict movie script, even books background, because I have found that I think some of the adventure games that are being called what is the word? It's that they're using now for video adventure. See, this is what you're finding, me being out of the industry for a while. Some of the the acronyms and I go, oh, what is that? Oh, okay, that's what it is. But I know what I'm talking about. I know what I mean. So you'll have to just excuse me. But I just have found that some of the adventure games that I've looked at that are more like an interactive movie. Seem to be more, there's a lot of cutscenes. There are a lot of cutscenes, and they're long, and it's, it seems the player doesn't have to do quite as much, and it's just more emphasis on the story and emphasis on beautiful scenes and just not so much real puzzle solving and exploration. And I don't mind the idea that you have to take a few notes. I think that's good. Let's see, is there anything more? Is that it? Talk a little about the various people I design games with. That is the last question. I don't want to call forth any person in particular. I've worked with so many people. Everybody was absolutely talented and just with me on the games I've worked with. I trained a lot of people over the years with Sierra, since I was the first one to do adventure games with Sierra. And, Ken wanted to have more adventure games. We couldn't depend on just me. I mean, there's only so much I can do as one person. So I got into training people how I did it. What my methods were, and I trained. Gosh, I don't know how many. 5, 6, maybe 7. I don't know. And all of which, I think all of them went on to become star adventure games of their own, and they did very well, and we were always very proud of them. So I enjoyed also doing it, because I found when you're working on a game design on your own, sometimes it can feel a little lonely, and you're there trying to think of what to do, and I don't think I ever really had mental blocks. I did so much research and took lots of notes. I always had something that I could bring forth to put into the game. But I really, when I started working with teams of people, and I would work with a co-designer, or I would help somebody on their own game to help get them started. I found that fun, because I like to work with others and come up with ideas together. It's actually a lot of fun. And with my producers and with artists, I just always, and with music, I love music and sound effects. Just whoever I would work with, I always found it fun, and I would just really get into it. Overall, I loved working with teams of people, and I am not a person that just wants to take credit for my games, because so many of them, the programmers too, were just wonderful people, and I love working with a team. And I think that's about it. And I think I have talked everybody's ears off. So I want to say goodbye. Thank you. 40 years. I keep reaching for this one. It's on top. King's Quest. 40 years. Thank you. And thank you for taking the time to listen to me.